friend of the channel by this point, Roblox is not something we've become a stranger to covering by now. Every year, or every 6 months now, there's something or even a few things that'll catch my interest on this site that either push the bounds of what I thought possible with the engine, or are sometimes just straight up fun. Ever since the release of Doors almost 3 years ago at this point, god damn, it really has been that long, has it? I've been keeping a good eye on what has been trending in this space since. There'd be some faces that come and go, some that would stick around, and new faces I feel that are still only at the beginning of their legacy. All these appealing to people that either look like this, or people who have engaged in 2010's cringe culture, aka the two halves of my audience. Don't worry, dear viewer, I know what you are. Although, I have to admit, the games that I've covered in the past did start to feel a little formulaic after a while. Last time we essentially just stuck to games that have very similar styles of gameplay, which I can certainly see as not being the most interesting thing to hear back to back. So in this one, despite having had updates, Doors and Pressure are not going to be covered in this video. I'll come back to them at a later date. I think it's time I gave some other projects some spotlight as well. And with the 3 I have picked out today, you'll start to notice a new trend in what gameplay is starting to become the more favorable for horror games on the platform. As all 3 of the games we're covering today have one crucial trait in common: asymmetry. Before hopping right in, I do want to give a brief explanation of what I mean by that. Asymmetry has a very basic definition, essentially just meaning unequal. This is where the term asymmetrical horror game comes into play. On a team at any given time, there could be a number of players with one common goal: escaping one more player. The odds making it seem very uneven, but with the tools that one player has at their disposal, typically it becomes far from. This is one use of the asymmetrical format, but it doesn't necessarily need to be the only use for it. After all, asymmetric just means uneven. This could apply to PvE settings as well. Funnily enough, you could consider like Piggy and Rainbow Friends under this category, so it isn't even like it's a new idea, although it certainly has been given new blood. So, I guess that raises the question: who are the faces for this evening? Well, why don't we start with some... One of them is this song made about a Roblox game called Forsaken that I've seen blowing up recently too, and it's probably my least favorite out of any of these we're covering. Not even really for any serious reason in particular, it just kind of has to do with one, I don't know what the hell a Forsaken even really is. Oh, well that all changes today, as I probably now know too much. If you've been around on the Roblox space for any amount of time in recent memory, the name Forsaken has been borderline inescapable, sitting consistently in the top 10 most played games on the site for months now, reaching numbers comparable to like Prime Piggy or Doors. Despite this, for the longest time, I did not know anything about it, literally not a single thing. So this experience has honestly been very interesting. Unlike many of the Roblox horror games we checked out in previous memory, Forsaken is a lot less linear than many of the other games we've covered. There's no way to beat Forsaken due to it being an asymmetrical game. It's infinitely replayable, which certainly means its longevity will probably be preserved for quite a while. The premise of the game itself is fairly simple, Dead by Daylight style gameplay, with the theme of the characters being classic Roblox icons. The barrier to entry honestly being pretty liberal with what they allow, a lot of the cast being made up of iconic myths like John Doe, with guest appearance of Jason Voorhees from Survive and Kill the Killers in Area 51. Now, although I absolutely have fond memories of when I genuinely thought that John Doe was going to take over Roblox in 2017, fear-mongering myself in videos like these absolutely not helping.
Whoa, John Doe's user ID is number 2, while Jane Doe's user ID is number 3, and 2 plus 3 is 5!
But I gotta say, this game is definitely the first time I'm hearing about people like Cool Kid. I don't know, maybe I'm just too much of a new gen. If we were going off just premise alone, I absolutely love this concept. Paying homage to an entire community's back catalog of iconography and prominent figures built up in the last 2 decades is really cool. A lot of this probably being many's first introduction to a lot of early Roblox figures as well. So we have a pretty decent and interesting setup. So, how's the gameplay itself? It's certainly an acquired taste, but all around pretty fun, actually. A lot of the core fundamentals of Forsaken are what you'd expect out of a lot of asym horror games. You spawn with a group of survivors or as a killer in a selection of maps as you try to survive one player who has been chosen to be that killer of the round. Generators are here as well, but they aren't the catch-all thing survivors need to win, simply bringing the time limit you need to survive down a chunk after completion. Though this is counterbalanced through killers getting a whole minute of extended time for each kill they land, so don't die. Or kill if you're the killer. Or survive and kill the killers. You're gonna be playing as survivor for most of the time you play Forsaken, so let's go over all that first. But first, oh god, not again! This video is once again sponsored by our buddies at War Thunder. War Thunder is a free-to-play, large-scale multiplayer action game with the ability to play in ground vehicles, aircraft, and naval vessels. In this game, you can engage in epic, dynamic battles using your military vehicle of choice, capturing the scale and intensity of these battles with an insane range of iconic tanks, helicopters, aircrafts, ships, and even rare prototypes from the mid-20th century to present day. If you're an enthusiast of military vehicles, you will be blown away at the level of detail in War Thunder, both in appearance and gameplay. Each and every vehicle having unique characteristics, allowing them to behave completely differently from each other in combat. Being able to upgrade and modify your favorites as you progress, and even customize their appearance with numerous skins and visual elements. And with the recent Hornet Sting update, many of the maps have received major graphical enhancements, making the immersion more prevalent than ever. That's not all, however, as the Hornet Sting update also introduced new advanced military vehicles such as the top-tier fighters Su-30 and Fa-18, and many more. Now's never been a better time to hop into the action of War Thunder. Download for free on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox by using the link in the description. All new players and those who haven't played War Thunder for half a year or more will receive some special bonuses: 100,000 Silver Lions, a special decorator, Eagle of Valor, and more. You can also immerse yourself in exciting battles in War Thunder Mobile, an epic mobile multiplayer action game. Download and play it for free on iOS or Android using the link in the description. Thank you again to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Is it a hot take to say that Survivor in this game is genuinely more fun than Survivor in DVD? Like I just stated, Survivor is going to be the primary role you're going to be experiencing while playing Forsaken, so a lot of care into how these survivors work has had a lot of consideration taken into it. Maybe a little too much consideration. Maybe a little bias. Well, we'll get there. A thing I really like about Forsaken compared to many other games of its kind is that every survivor has a completely unique kit, making gameplay far more engaging than just having a typical perk system. There is so much variety. In fact, the survivors are actually divided between character archetypes, almost like a hero shooter or MOBA. These classes are divided between 3 groups: Survivalist, Sentinel, and Support. Survivalists specialize in one thing above all else: surviving. To kill the— From my perspective, survivalists are more introductory characters that teach you the fundamentals that you'll go to use in other roles. A hypothesis backed up due to the fact that survivalists also make up the least amount of playable character slots, only being filled up by Noob and 00N7. That's like some shit Elon Musk would name his child that he'll abandon. Sentinels are defensive survivors, their playstyles theming around protecting teammates, typically by stunning the killer. They have a myriad of ways to do this. For example, Shedletsky has a sword, while Chance has a gun. The final class of characters are the support. The name's pretty self-explanatory. Their primary role is to stay in the back line of the killer, providing either healing items or structures that can temporarily slow the killer, such as Builderman's sentry turret. Although you can certainly win by playing any character you want, just like any class-based game, your odds of survival are increased tenfold through having a balanced team comp. At least the balance of supporters and sentinels. You'd probably be better off without survivalists on your team, actually. It is clear that a lot of thought has gone into each of these kits, and none of them feel more optimal than the other. Forsaken is fortunately a very casual game, and let's be real, this is what most of your lobby is probably gonna look like, so the nitty-gritty balance is probably not that big of a concern here like it would be of other games of this avenue. For each survivor to actually survive, the only thing you gotta do is just beat the clock. I mentioned that there are generators that you can do to make your odds of survival greater, but they don't work like how you'd expect. Instead of being a crucial part of escaping, you can completely override the need for them at all if you want. Generators just serve as a bonus that can make your time you need to spend in a match go down quicker, shaving off about 16 seconds total for each generator completed. Unlike a lot of asymmetrical horror games, you don't do a simple skill check and rather have to play 3 rounds of flow on the App Store instead. But as mentioned on the contrary, for each kill a killer gets in a round, time is added to the board, making escape prolonged. This makes the structure fairly balanced, all things considered, though one thing that is really hard to defend is just this fucking guy. Noob is a terrible introductory character. For being the character that you will likely be playing as for at least the first 10 rounds of the game, Noob is terrible at teaching you any fundamentals. 2 of his moves are not something a beginner would know how to use practically unless they already rack up a decent amount of hours, and Bloxy Cola, the most straightforward ability in the kit, is an item you can just easily find on the ground in most situations. Not to mention that the colors of the noob are just insanely bright as well, meaning killers will likely tunnel you first because 1, you're easy to spot, and 2, you're a noob. Thankfully, this was fixed in a fairly recent update, which made Shedletsky and Elliot free to play as well. These 2 are meant to be your introductions to the support and sentinel classes. Elliot is fine if you know how to play him, but has an extremely high learning curve due to much lower health and limited defense options. Essentially, try to do literally as little as possible with him unless you're throwing your pizza! On the other hand, however, Shedletsky is actually a very viable character, and the one I'd recommend beginners to pick up first before anyone else. His kit is very straightforward and are basically always viable things you can pull out if you're in danger. He's got a sword that can stun the killer when landing a hit, and 2 healing items. Despite now being a starter character, he may genuinely just be one of the best survivors to play in the game, so play Shedletsky, he's cool. How you play as a survivor beyond that really just varies depending on what characters fit your preferred playstyle, with the learning curve being varied for each and every one. My personal favorite to play is Guest 1337 because his entire kit is based around parrying, which is extremely fun. Although I will admit he is in desperate need of a buff, so please buff him. I really like him, but I want to play him more viably, please. Although plenty of survivors are meant to be callbacks to famous pieces of Roblox iconography, there are some thrown in there that are also completely original, primarily Taff, Chance, and 2 Time. Taff is fine, honestly. I see a lot of people utilize him really well if you can understand his kits. Heavy emphasis on the if. You need to play some pretty insane mind games in order to set up your tripwire in a way that isn't obvious, and this only gets harder as you match with more experienced killers. And his disoriental bomb thing can be really destructive if landed, but has such a long charge time that I can't really seem to get much leverage out of it. Chance is like the personification of Mario Kart Wii into a character. He is pure chaos. He is entirely luck-based. He doesn't even have a binary difficulty, it just says never stop gambling, meaning you could hypothetically sweep the entire round playing him or die immediately. it's always more likely you'll just die immediately. I actually think Chance is a fairly understandable character despite this, actually. His abilities are super straightforward to use if you just get lucky, and can be really powerful. It's just a question of whether or not you want to endure that, because god damn, you can have some really irritating Chance runs. Also, I think they should add, like, the Benny from Fallout New Vegas as a skin for him. I think that'd be pretty cool.
What in the goddamn...
The final OC character, and quite possibly the one I am the most torn on, is none other than Two Time. I fortunately really only started playing Forsaken after they got their rework, so I never got to experience them when they were... For this, I'll only speak for how Two Time plays now rather than how they did for consistency's sake. Two Time is probably the most skill-based character in the entire roster, having average health, but the ability to stab the killer to fill up this meter right here. If you do so, they get to return with half health for the rest of the round wherever you put your respawn anchor down. And that's why their name is Two Time, because they come back from death. Yeah, this character is absolutely a fan favorite, and I can understand why, but personally, I'm just not very good with them, so I don't play them often. Although, the concept of incorporating the Roblox respawn symbol as like this cultish figure around the idea of cheating death is a really cool interpretation, and a very fitting creative liberty taken by the devs. I love stuff like this. I know this list has kind of been all over the place, but we still do got 3 more survivors to talk about. Oh joy! Rounding out the roster is Drewsker, Builderman, and 007N. Characters I'm not the fondest of playing personally. Drewsker is just really hard to play, having only support abilities that you cannot use on yourself. I think if you wish to play a character like this, absolutely get some practice with Elliot first, because this guy is just that, but even more difficult. Builderman is just essentially the engineered TF2 of the group, literally having a skin that is just him. You love to see it. His whole deal, outside of being the CEO of Roblox, is building sentry turrets that can momentarily slow down the killer, as well as dispensers that slowly disperse health to your allies if injured. These are not bad abilities in the slightest, but I personally feel they're a little too underpowered to justify playing for my taste. If I wanted to play offense while being able to heal, I would just play Shidletsky. Granted, I can't really heal my teammates that way, but you get the point. The final survivor, 007N. The only other character filling the survivalist slot alongside Noob. He's an acquired taste, that's the best way I can describe him. I think he's a lot more fun to play than Noob, but he also does have a slightly higher skill ceiling to bat. 007N's primary gimmick is through his notoriety as an ancient Roblox exploiter, his kit reflecting that. The first ability you get is being able to clone yourself, potentially being able to disorient your pursuer if executed properly. And if you're really in a pinch, your secondary ability is to teleport all the way across the map after a 6-second windup. An ability that is super powerful, but also pretty hard to execute if you're in the middle of being chased, which I absolutely think makes it a fair balance. Survivor is what you're going to be playing for most of your time in Forsaken, and I gotta say, the gameplay here is genuinely top-notch for a Roblox experience. The Survivor gameplay is sincerely some of the most refreshing I have played in the asym genre in a long while, and has been an absolute breath of fresh air from the sweatfest DBD has become. Genuinely, I don't think I have had this much fun playing this type of game since the Texas Chainsaw game from a couple of years back, but dear god, I hope this game does not have the same fate as that, or I would
cry very hard but ultimately get over it, as it is just a video game, and there are bigger problems to get sad by.
Although this is the role you'll be experiencing for 90% of your time playing Forsaken, it is still only one side of the coin. We've yet to talk about one very crucial gameplay mechanic: malice. For every generator you complete while in a round, you gain what could essentially be considered a pseudo-currency called malice. And if you're the lucky soul to have the most malice in your lobby, you spend it all for a chance at retribution. Okay, I'm just gonna say this right now. Please, for the love of God, if you value anything near and dear to your heart, before you play Killer, please do this one thing. Open your settings tab, scroll all the way down, and see this little box that says visible attack hitboxes? Yeah, turn that on immediately, like genuinely without hesitation. You will actually be able to tell where the fuck you are hitting. If there is anything I'd consider to be the closest thing to a gaming hazing ritual, it's playing Killer in an asym horror game. It's a time where you expect to hold all the power, be the threat to the rest of the players, but in reality, it's just you being looped around the same goddamn pallet for 30 seconds and then having the light of God hit you over and over again. God, I fucking hate Dead by Daylight so much. No amount of spring traps will salvage that. I am certainly here to report that Forsaken is definitely no different in that department. Though I do believe this has the benefit of absolutely not having nearly as huge of a learning curve many other games in this genre have. The biggest criticism I have with Killer Roll is the fact that since you'll be playing it a lot less, it's a lot harder to learn. Forsaken doesn't have dedicated killer or survivor queues. The closest thing you got is just being able to disable queuing for Killer in your settings, which doesn't really help us in this context. For your first few rounds as Killer, you're likely not going to do all that well, or do anything at all, really. And the matches are in matches from... It takes a while to get used to the janky hitboxes. Other players are going to be a lot better at managing stamina than you, and just generally, Jason is not a good starter killer compared to literally everyone else on the cast. Granted, he's not awful, but he has the same problem as Noob, where he's just not that beginner friendly. All three of his special abilities are super situational, and you can only get good mileage out of them in very specific cases, such as catching a player in a very narrow corner or while they're on a gen. And his final ability, Raging Face, is not awful, but is certainly outclassed by similar abilities other killers have. It allows you to highlight the character closest to you on the map while also moving slightly faster than walking, but not as fast as running. But it still drains your stamina for some reason. This move is kind of fucking stupid, actually. Killers are a lot more expensive than survivors because there's a lot less of them, but fortunately, the cheapest one is also my favorite. Viably, a Cool Kid is certainly not the best character to pick out of the roster, but it's made up for him being objectively easier to understand than Jason. Cool Kid is the killer I actually learned how to viably play Killer on. His unique moves are a lot more versatile for a beginner than Jason's. His dash ability in particular is like a guaranteed hit if you just use it up close, and he even has a projectile. Also, the ability to summon his own minions and shit, like this character is pretty stacked. If you're not having fun on Killer as a beginner outside of tampering with your settings, I'd absolutely recommend investing in Cool Kid once you get the chance to. The final killers currently on this roster are the iconic hacker myths John Doe and 1x1. John is fine. I really only started picking him up after I learned the basics of playing Killer, so I do serviceable as him. He has the ability to summon huge spikes to control entire portions of the map for a few seconds, and if you use another one of his abilities that can also reveal the location of survivors, you can do some pretty devastating stuff as him completely under survivors' noses. Although when I play him, I don't really ever see myself using his abilities all that much. I don't know, he definitely feels a lot more like an M1 killer compared to Jason whenever I play as him. That does not apply to 1x1, however, who feels like Cool Kid if you gave him fucking steroids. This is a fun character to play, dude, but I genuinely feel dirty every time I use him. 1x is primarily projectile based, which is a lot more unique compared to the other three killers. This makes him a genuine monster to play as or play against. It seriously feels like I'm cheating in some of these lobbies. Like, oh, I can just see everyone on the map? Okay, cool. Oh, I can throw hundreds of no-clipping projectiles across the map and snipe people from hundreds of meters away? Okay, I can summon minions too? When I play in lobbies with more skilled players, I don't necessarily always have this happen. Matches can be more varied, especially if they have a 2-time on their team, but for this to even be something that happens in the first place is kind of crazy to to me. I don't really know if he's due for a nerf or not, nor am I sure on what the general consensus is on him, so let me know your opinions. Life or death for green guy. On the surface, Forsaken seems to be a very straightforward asymmetrical horror game, and that's because it is. Arguably a little survivor-sided, but all around a really good time passer, especially if you're with friends. Though, there is a specific game I had when I was playing that I do want to talk about. When I was getting footage for this video, I had to play around with a cool kid while I was playing as 007N, where I was the final survivor standing. Now, this wasn't my first time experiencing a showdown while playing this game, but this was the first time I heard this. This game has a level of sauce unmatched by this entire platform. The song you are currently listening to is called Plead, and it is one of the few unique Final Showdown themes present for survivors and killers that have significant lore between each other. Forsaken would still be a good game if it was simply everything we had touched base on so far, but the thing that absolutely elevates this from being your flavor of the month Roblox game to something I sincerely believe has staying power is just how much personality is oozing out of every crevice of this project. Something that is a staple to many games of this type is a mechanic known as a terror radius. Boiling it down to the simplest terms, it's a gameplay mechanic where the closer a killer is to you, the more of this foreboding ambience you'll start to hear. And Forsaken has some of the best terror radiuses of any game I have ever played like this. Not only is there just a lot of variety, Jason having this very classic feeling horror chase theme, Cool Kid having this spooky whimsical waltz, as well as John and 1X having very digital sounding themes, they are all just genuine bangers. This game has overthrown pressure in being my new favorite Roblox OST, and that is a high bar to pass, at least for me. If I sat here and just gushed about each theme right now, it would probably make this video way longer than it needs to be, and we have already spent a lot of time on just Forsaken, so I'll highlight two of my other favorites. 1x1's chase theme. The way it samples EAS alert systems is really cool, and it fits very well with the character. My second favorite is Cutthroat Tea Party for the character Pretty Princess. You might have just noticed that I have not brought this character up once, and that's because I have yet to talk about the skins. We gotta talk about the skins, guys! Now, every live service game has gotta have something that makes it profitable. There's typically no way around dodging that. But surprisingly, Forsaken's cosmetics are actually extremely fair to obtain, and you can grind out for one if you really want it in just a few sessions. There's a lot that can be done with these skins too, a lot of them being references or representation to other corners of Roblox lore, or it can just be like anything, like literally anything. There's a skin for 007N that just turns you into Cecil Stedman. There's more thought put into some skins than others, some having unique voice lines or even chase themes as we have already displayed, and some of them are, oh my fucking god, what in the goddamn? The places Forsaken pulls in order to reference this niche corner of internet culture will leave you clapping your belly like a seal if you're as terminally online as I. There's so many fun references to what emotes are skins are included that just make you feel like that one image of Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at his TV. Stuff like this would honestly feel kind of intrusive if it was anyone else doing it, but it's very clear the Forsaken dev team just have a very specific sense of humor to where this stuff doesn't feel forced and more just like this is what these guys genuinely just find funny. It blends the retro Roblox aesthetics with the modern stuff very well, I believe, and a lot of what this game pulls from is stuff I can resonate with personally. There's also been a clear passion put behind the lore this game is starting to cultivate, and although its story may not be the most original thing, or even remotely finished at the time of writing this, the ideas and inclusions implemented to tie everything together here clearly have had a lot of thought and passion put behind it, and I believe that's commendable for games where you need to actively seek this stuff out to even find it. Forsaken is a project I'm going to keep my eyes on for a good while, I feel. It's becoming exceedingly rare for games on this platform to truly captivate my interest in the way Forsaken has, but whenever they do come around, I do need to commemorate that. In conclusion, if any Forsaken devs are watching this video, you should totally add Stan from Identity Fraud as a killer. I really liked this game when I was a wee lad. It'd be cool to have some representation. I dressed up like this guy for Halloween when I was like 10 years old. Anyways, hello Sonic. Okay, bye Sonic.
Hey guys, it's Horse.
So, we gotta address a pretty big elephant. At the time I am writing this, it is currently June 1st, 2025. Pillar Chase 2 was going to be the last game I originally planned on checking out on this list. This project has been in production for a while now, with a lot of the time being taken up on simply learning Forsaken enough for me to comfortably talk about it in this video. So, only just a few nights ago, I decided to finally start playing Pillar Chase 2. Wanna know what happened on my first night trying to play Pillar Chase 2? Okay. Nice. Huh? The fuck? What? I get fucking banned? What happened? What? What the The clip you just watched was the exact moment PC2 got its servers taken down, with no sign of them coming back anytime soon. So, we gotta compromise here a little bit. Before getting taken down, I had gotten around 2 hours of total playtime on this game, so I don't feel like I have that great of a leg to stand on and critique like I did with Forsaken. Pillar Chase 2 is admittedly a game I should have just checked out far sooner regardless, for just how infectious its presence has been in this space. So I will admit fault for not getting to it sooner. That one is definitely on me. This game has a very similar concept to Forsaken, but differs in many ways. First off, it's apparently not inspired by Dead by Daylight, and rather a custom game mode from Halo Reach. And that is certainly a claim I can believe, as although still being an asym horror game, it doesn't play like DBD at all, and plays more something like It Steals or even like the fucking Dark Deception. The theme of the game is also very unique to itself, the pool of killers they decide to pull from being primarily dominated by iconic creepypasta, analog horror, or just general internet horror monster icons. A concept I genuinely adore, as plenty of these characters would likely not get a rep in anything outside a game like this. Like, sure, Springtrap was always possible, but the day you see Baldy get added to Dead by Daylight is the same day the Rapture happens. For this, I had always had an interest in checking out Pillar Chase for a while, but for one reason or another, was never really compelled to do so. I don't know if I was just too busy, or if I didn't really have anyone to play with, but I just never got around to it. From what I did play, Survivor gameplay was actually kind of fun, but felt a little killer-sized one-sided if you entered into a chase like even once. Like Forsaken, Survivor is the primary role you'll be playing for much of your time, but unlike Forsaken, the actual attention on how a specific survivor plays is a lot less accounted for. Not having specific characters to choose from, and rather upgrades and personal perks that you can equip or swap out during matches. No, the real attention is on the wide cast of killers, in which I only got to play one round with the default killer and I kinda sucked, honestly. I really wish so hard I would be able to judge this game fairly, because although the first few minutes were fun, fatigue honestly started to kick in really fast for me, which is unfortunate because this type of game I really wish I could like, and who knows, maybe I would've if I was given more of a chance to. Since I don't feel like I can really give a good faith rundown on the actual game itself, I honestly think the next best thing would be to just explain how in the world we got into this situation in the first place, because it's really convoluted, really confusing, and really, really dumb. So let me set the stage a little bit. Our story doesn't actually start with Pillar Chase itself, but rather another asym Roblox game called sonic.exe, The Disaster. Guess what this game was themed around? Unlike Pillar Chase, this was a game I actually did play in the past. Sonic.exe is a major guilty pleasure of mine, and my oh so affectionate pal Micaiah descended from the heavens one night to recommend we check this game out. And honestly, it was pretty fun, originally even being a contender for one of the games I talked about in this video. Sonic.exe The Disaster had everything going for it. A lively player base, loyal community, and even a Forsaken collab that had a ton of progress already done on it. But tragedy struck one day in the form of Sega copyright struck the game and took it down permanently. Whoops! Now, if you're a Sonic fan, you probably feel like the concept of this is completely unheard of typically. Sega is not known for striking down fan games, and have really only ever done so under very fringe circumstances. And them striking down an EXE project, if I'm to be believed, has literally never happened before, so this was extremely strange to say the least. Of course, people were quick to speculate, bringing up the prospect of it potentially being a fake Sega filing the claim, a practice that has happened in the past unfortunately with other IPs. But that was quickly confirmed not to be the case. For one reason or another, the real Sega did decide to just take down this project, and that's that. Fortunately, there do seem to be some projects in the works to hopefully restore it, but I'm not all too sure on how the progress is going on any of those. So, now, I know the question on all of your minds. How does this relate back to Baldi? Remember when I said Pillar Chase is primarily based around creepypasta characters? Well, that obviously applies to quite possibly the most known and most prolific gaming creepypasta character ever. Sonic.exe is someone who had not just had one rep in Pillar Chase, but actually two. One simply being titled EXE, who has a build that is very much more distinct from your typical Sonic proportions, and PCX, who follows much more traditional Sonic design philosophies. Outside of The Disaster, Pillar Chase 2 is probably the second biggest Roblox game to feature Sonic.exe in it currently. You can probably start to see the problem here. Not long after The Disaster was copyright claimed, PCX was removed from the game and was stated that he would come back after a rework. A decision you could potentially claim as a bit of an overreaction, but it is understandable. When you have such a big project with hundreds of dedicated fans and supporters, it is probably a good thing to want to take as many precautions as possible when it comes to these things, and I will always be sympathetic to that. And it wouldn't take too long for the PCX redesign to finally be revealed to us, coming in the form of... Okay, I won't lie, I see the vision here, I really do. but I'm just personally not the biggest fan of this at all. Pillar Chase's original X take had this really cool inclusion of having inhibitor rings on the design, but that was replaced with these really chunky bronze bracelets that I just do not vibe with even as nearly. And like, come on guys, beige was really the best color we could choose? Beige? We couldn't at least made him like, I don't know, gray? And what's with these bright orange shoes? I'm sorry, the more I stare at this design, the less I like it, and it doesn't help that I get unsolicited drawings of its ass on my Twitter timeline. Again, I really wish I could give more of a critique or review on how this character plays outside of its design, but you know. I know I could probably just judge it based on watching gameplay, but I don't really feel like that's fair. Now, typically, I would just wait for the game to be relisted in a situation like this, but something tells me that's not gonna happen for a while. Whether they're meaning to or not, the Pillar Chase devs are being extremely vague about why exactly the game got delisted. But if I were to assume off the very little information that has been given to us, it is because they are trying to get permission for all of the characters to be in the game now. Which, like, if that's the case, you literally have 2 Mario characters in this game. What the fuck are you expecting? If you think Sega is scary, you sure as shit aren't ready for Doug Bowser's wrath. Again, it's unsure whether or not this is exactly what they are doing, but I can't lie, it certainly sounds like it. And if that's the case, that honestly just feels extremely naive and would potentially put the game at a way larger risk than if they were just to be cruising under the radar. As of right now, it's completely unknown whenever Pillar Chase is meant to come back. It could be a week from now, or it could take months, like there's really no way of telling. This section of the video is very unfortunate and honestly kind of frustrating on my part because I would have liked to review this game to the same lengths I did Forsaken, and I was planning on doing so. So honestly, really sorry to the Pillar Chase fans that were expecting more about the game itself to be said, but there's really not much that I can do at the moment. I know there's a debate between which is better, Forsaken or Pillar Chase 2, but if we were to just look at the stats alone, I think it's pretty bleak, Pillar Chase bros. Too soon? I don't know. It seems like you guys are already too far gone. Before we move on, because I know people will yell at me for it, do I really think Pillar Chase is bad? I mean, I said I can't really give a full judgment, so do I really mean that? I got killed through a wall by fucking Aoni, and that made me really mad, so that's enough out of you. Let's bring in this stupid-ass flower. The final game on our list, and quite possibly the most divisive one as well. Now, the thesis of this entire video so far has been the topic of asymmetry and how that is becoming the preferred style of horror games on Roblox and what that means for the platform. But I do admit, Dandy's World definitely does start to stretch that definition just a bit. Dandy's World is not your traditional asym horror game. Despite still being inspired by the big one, there are only a few elements that are actually comparable. The biggest diversion in Dandy's World kinda just comes from the fact that killer role isn't something a player can actually play, instead being taken the helm by pretty mediocre AI. But the challenge here is meant to come from there being more than one on the map at once, typically 2 to 4. Despite technically still falling into the asym category based on these guidelines, it would be disingenuous to not say that this is absolutely the black sheep of the group. Although most Roblox games are kinda targeted by people out of the loop, Dandy's World is the one that certainly gets the most flack, even by other people who enjoy the other 2 games discussed. And as someone who used to be an outsider, I kinda understand. This game definitely has the Rainbow Friends thing going on where we are definitely stretching the definition of a horror game a bit. Dandy's World, without question, is the game on this list most targeted towards children. And not like preteens to young adults like the the 2 other games. I mean, like, genuine toddlers this time. Despite this, it still does have a very dedicated and very passionate older crowd who genuinely enjoy the game's mechanics and especially its characters. Whether or not a stigma around this is deserved is certainly another topic, and one I already discussed in length on another project I was already involved in, so if you're more interested in a full dissection of that, go watch that video. It'll be linked in the description, but you better finish this one first, you attention deficit bastard. I'd like to focus my thesis around this game on the game itself. Its mechanics, its progression, and most of all, is Dandy's World fun? Well, I'd say, I'd say, oh jeez, I'd say Dandy's World is kind of fun. I need to preface this by saying I am not the target audience of this game, like, at all. Although I am certainly an enjoyer of mascot horror properties, Dandy's World is where I believe things start to sway a little too young, and matches in public lobbies start to feel like a daycare. But I will say, playing this game with friends who are far more passionate about the subject than I does change your perspective on things a bit. I think it's typically kind of a cop-out to say things are fun with friends, because I believe most things are if you're with the right group, but I've genuinely caught myself playing this game in my spare time and honestly kind of enjoying myself. Like most things on Roblox, Dandy's World is certainly more of a time killer than anything else, but if you're deep into the meat of it, the loop can start to become addicting and even slightly challenging at points. Heavy emphasis on the slightly. The core premise of Dandy's World is very simple. You and your squad go down an elevator of infinitely generating rooms where you need to extract a substance known as E-core from a set amount of generators on the map, while avoiding dark, fucked up versions of the main cast, appropriately labeled as the Twisteds. On some floors, you are sometimes either given a prompt to pick a perk that makes survival easier for your whole squad, or personal items that you can buy for yourself with tapes. Tapes are the primary currency of Dandy's World, and you'll find them on the ground typically depending on what level you are currently on. Other than that, your objective is to just survive for as long as possible with your squad mates. This gameplay loop honestly being a blend between your typical asymmetrical experience with the more roguelike style that has also dominated the platform for years. The threats you find on each floor really not offering much variety outside of making chase with you the moment one spots you. Although this formula is broken up via very specific characters, which I should probably mention are referred to as tunes, because they're so rubber hose. I believe this makes Dandy's World, at its core, the most straightforward game out of any of these games on the surface. But when you even slightly start to peel back, you realize that the toddlers that play this game have created entire class structures and rule sets, and that's when you start to get scared. Although Dandy's World's concept is very streamlined, it's the smaller, more fine details that can really throw a wrench into the whole hypothesis. The things the community itself has established in this game can vary from fun little challenge runs that become popular in the community to systems put in place that actively target beginner players through fundamental faults in Dandy's World structure. At the beginning of the game, you are asked to choose one of the 2 starter characters Dandy's World gives you for free. These 2 being Poppy and Boxton. Every tune in Dandy's World has a unique ability or set of abilities that make each other different, kind of falling into the same pillars that Forsaken survivors fall into. Distractor tunes are kind of like the sentinels of this game. Their primary focus is rounding up Twisteds and keeping them occupied or distracted. They have abilities that can help with this, as well as faster walk and run speed on average. This is done so that the extractors can extract. These characters' kits are based around extracting E-core more efficiently and safely, but being spotted puts them at a much higher risk. There's also support tunes, where, as the name suggests, offer support, typically in healing or in giving you stat boosts. Now remember our 2 starter characters? Yeah, neither of them really fall into any fucking category. Poppy's one and only ability is getting a slight speed boost if you are hit by a twist twisted, and typically an ability like that is just given to anyone in most asym games, so, okay. And Boxton's only ability is that he can extract slightly better, so I guess he's an extractor, but like barely, since his stats compared to every other extractor in the game is absolute buns. This makes the game honestly kind of inaccessible as a beginner player, especially when some lobbies will literally bar you from being allowed to join if you play as a starter toon. Granted, you can just say fuck you to the host and run into their elevator with them anyways, but I can imagine being the actual age who this game is directed to, and honestly making me feel a little upset and insecure if this happened to me. Compared to the other two games, the progression in Dandy's World is absolutely awful. You know that E-core stuff that you extract while you're in the game? That's also a currency in Dandy's World as well, but this time its use is for collecting other toons to play as. With this game being only survivor focused, Dandy's World has an insane variety of toons to pick from, already having 25 playable characters, not even counting event or holiday toons. But unlike the other games we've covered, Dandy's World requires a lot more out of you than just collecting currency to unlock them. You need to also complete milestone challenges to also unlock certain toons as well, likely being a measure so you can't just buy your way to the top. But it is also really fucking annoying in most situations. At the time of writing this, the game just added a new toon named Blot. He's this stupid emo little mime thing, and he's also probably my favorite design in the game. To collect him, not only do you need 3,000 E-core, but you need to do all the milestone challenges for the toons Yada and Louie. But to even unlock Louie, you gotta do all the mastery quests for Poppy first, so fuck you if you chose Boxton as your starter, I guess. But oh, it doesn't end there. You need to unlock 15 other toons to even purchase Yada, meaning you need to complete quests for God knows how many other toons you don't care about playing in the meantime. But oh, and you need to collect research on specific toons as well, which is completely random. But don't worry, Roger can help. But oh, I haven't even talked about Roger yet. Lettuce, cheese, onions, tomatoes, E-core, mustard, pickles, ABC for mustard run, guys. Ah! As you can see, there's kind of a balancing issue in this game if you really want a specific character. Grinding for characters, especially toons that are considered the mains, can take hours of your time, up to entire days worth of grinding just to get a single character that you gravitate towards. I can see arguments being made about this kind of thing being a good thing, incentivizing playing the game itself over just buying your way to the top, and I can somewhat agree there. I just feel like a lot of the challenges and research collecting needed to be done to get those things accomplished can genuinely be asinine at times. It's gotten to the point where I have played as Roger for so long to collect that research bonus on all the different toons that I've basically just assigned him as my main because I like his design. Toons that actually have good abilities, especially the main toons, being so gatekept by the design of the game feels extremely backwards, especially considering the struggle you have playing an underpowered character would negate those special abilities being super useful in the first place, so the entire experience just feels like...
What do we do now? What do you mean? Now we can finally play the game.
Though, if you are able to collect enough to get any of these characters, some highlights I'd say are Sprout and Pebble. Both of these characters are extremely hard to obtain, but Sprout is a really good healer and a borderline essential pick if you plan to do any long runs. And the same can be said for Pebble. He's the best distractor in the game with a pretty damn useful E ability too. If I had to highlight another character I like, Goob is funny because you can either use them to properly save other toons, or you can be malicious and evil, which is really funny. Outside of grinding for toons, there are other systems that have been put in place by the community, such as how the matches work in general. Dandy's World's lobby system works really similar to Pressure or Doors, where you have to party up with other characters to get into a lobby. But Dandy's World players take this process far more seriously, making lines where people coordinate their squads before leaving. There are a ton of fan-made modes and rule sets for each run, but the only ones that really matter are normal runs and the dandy runs. Normal runs are pretty self-explanatory, just play the game how you'd like. The only thing that makes a dandy run different is that you don't buy from his shop whenever he comes around. This makes Dandy go into PMEO mode where he turns into Twisted Dandy. From what I'm able to gather, this is really only useful for if you want to collect the Dandy plush trinket, which grants you a 50% discount on Dandy's shop. A perk that's honestly not the best when stacked against stuff like the V-mote, which basically grants you an instant generator completion on each floor, or the dog plush and speed shoes, which significantly increase your speed, so I don't really know why so many people are insistent on doing dandy runs. I guess he just looks cool. Dandy's World has lore too, of course it has lore. It's like serviceable, it's really inoffensive and what you'd expect out of a mascot horror game on Roblox. The TV studio all the tunes are in was mysteriously shut down, so all the tunes inside need to survive for themselves, yada yada yada. It's very straightforward. If you decide to play Dandy's World, I'd honestly really only recommend it if you can convince a group of friends to play with you, or if you're just really into mascot horror games with bright, colorful characters. Then you'd probably find moderate to satisfying enjoyment with it. I briefly mentioned earlier how Forsaken and Pillar Chase fans would get into fights on which is better, but the one thing they seem to always agree on is hating Dandy's World. And after playing all three, I think the stigma around this game is kinda undeserved. Sure, kids play it, it's not the most fun or creative game in the world, but I certainly think it's popular for a reason. Roguelike loops are fun and addictive. Typically, it barely matters how it's presented. That's why it does so well. Dandy's World can very easily scratch that itch if you're looking for it, and it's honestly just a nice thing to do with your hands if you're just yapping in a Discord call for a prolonged period of time. Would I call the game good exactly? I don't know. I gravitate a lot more to using the word inoffensive when describing it. I can completely understand how some can get attached to these characters, and the art and animation featured in this game is really nice to look at as well. Especially these little cartoon loops you can sometimes see on the TVs. I love stuff like this. This is so cute. There's a lot of clear passion and love here, not just expressed through the creator Quell, but also through the audience as well. It may not be exactly for me, but I can certainly see the appeal, and I got passionate enough to actually want the issues I have with this game addressed. So, after all the hours I put into this game, I might just have to label myself as a fan. But like, Quell, can we please like make Tisha and like Goob starter tunes? That's all I'm asking. Just please. Poppy and Boxton are horrible introductory characters. Please just do something. Literally anything to address that issue. It would make things so much easier. Please listen to me. Roblox continues to be a platform where literally anything can show up and completely rewrite what metas dominate the platform for the next year. Now more than ever, it feels like we're getting some pretty good experiences in the horror genre than we have in a really long while. Things were starting to look pretty bleak 2 years ago, but the new popular games, even the ones I'm not entirely sold on, feel a lot more promising than they ever had. The asym format is just kind of timeless, and it's really interesting to see where it'll go next. Say what you want about all three of these games, but despite falling under the same genre, none of them played quite like the other, which I think is a really good sign to see where this platform is currently. I think the audiences and fan bases of all these games should lighten up a bit to one another. It shouldn't really be about which game is better or which game you gotta take the moral high ground over because of controversy, and if that's what we're judging by, holy shit, all of these games have skeletons in their closets. I believe all of these games deserve to be celebrated in their own right. Even if some of them have less than desirable mechanics, none of them felt like they were made purely for profit and nothing more. And with how volatile this platform can be at times, that is something special. At the end of the day, we're all playing on the same platform, so I believe we should just try to coexist better. Even if just a little bit. Be more accepting to your neighboring communities on this platform. Who knows? Maybe you can even find enjoyment if you just keep an open mind. Except Regretivator, fuck that game.
We are forsaken. 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 We are forsaken.